Hello and welcome to the Impact Zone podcast. We are back once more to talk more TNA wrestling shenanigans. But today we are here to talk about WWE shenanigans, specifically the WWE releases that have gone down. So there is a lot of releases, and there might be more on the way because there have been a few releases that have been like, I don't know, not staggered out, but sort of like dripping through or whatever else it is. So I do want to go through some of the releases. Oh, I'm going to go through all of the releases, but I'm mainly going to be talking more about the people that could be coming to TNA. So I want to preface this by saying I'm mainly talking also about people that have really been involved in the project, in the product in the last few years or what have you, because those would be the people that have worked with TNA in the past, or at least in the fairly recent past as well, that feel like, hey, this is like this is something where obviously they have a relationship of some description. So let's go through the list. All right, so I don't know I don't know really where to start with this, but I think this is from the main roster, both Raw and SmackDown. Dakota Kai, Braun Strowman, Shayna Baszler, Jaden Cater, and Katrina Chase. Now, none of these people have been in TNA, have worked in TNA to my knowledge. Like, I know that Strowman was released like 2 or 3 times thus far. I feel like Shayna was released at some point. I'm not too sure. I don't really recall. I'm not sure. So do correct me on that. I think actually Dakota Kai was also released a couple of times, maybe. I'm not too sure. But I actually think it was like, and she returned under the Triple H, or am I thinking of somebody else? She returned when Triple H got back in power or whatever it was. Not too sure, but I would say Dakota could be a good pickup, but then again, Dakota is probably a big name, and it's like, well, she might command a bigger price tag or a bigger just a bigger deal in general. Braun Strowman, it's interesting though because they actually said, hey, we want to bring Braun Strowman in for Bound for Glory. Like, dude, try to do that again. Like, why not? Like, let's bring him in. Let's do something with him. Do something big. At least even if it was a one-off, I wouldn't say no. There are many more. Most of these are from the NXT brand. So yeah, I think that would be more people that we would consider being more so. I'm gonna get to some of these other ones just a little bit later. Gallus, aka Joe Coffey, Orno Messiah, Eddie Thorpe, Riley Osborne, Jakara Jackson, Java Berntal, Cora Jade, and Gigi Dolan. So Cora Jade, Gigi Dolan, and Jakara Jackson, these 3 people have appeared in the last few months in TNA. So honestly, I feel like they would be extremely good fits. Now, we actually Cora Jade was also in TNA like many years ago, so like that would make some amount of sense. I could like in my opinion, you could argue she could like some of these people could obviously go to WWE or whatever, what have you, but still, I feel like you could make the argument for them going to or being in TNA because again, like even if you say, oh well, they don't like might not want to be there in some ways, well, that might be true, but even so, if they are in TNA, guess who's partnered with TNA? WWE. So again, and there is a lot of crossover between WWE. Well, not a lot, but there is a fair amount of crossover between WWE and NXT. Oh, NXT, WWE, and TNA. So they could still work some stuff in WWE and in NXT, like while they're working in TNA. Like, so in some sense, it's almost a win-win. In some ways, yes, you're not getting paid by WWE, and you're probably getting paid as much, and you're not got as much exposure. But like TNA is fighting that good fight all the time, and WWE is actually trying to help them somewhat. So I'm very hopeful for them getting like more exposure and better things. Like they really need to get more distribution in the sense of sort of, you know, I don't know. Not what they've already got. They already have some amount of things, but they just need more. They need to have, those deals. They need streaming, honestly. That's what they need. They need streaming. So that would be good for them to get streaming of some sort on some platform at some point. How that happens, when that happens, da 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 da, all that sort of stuff is a big thing. But again, it is important for them to try to do this thing. Like, yes, you can get TV distribution, but again, like at a certain point, it's not where most people consume their wrestling. So, or not wrestling, or any kind of content really nowadays. Everyone gets everything off of streaming. So you need to be like, okay, how can we get streaming? Where can we get streaming? How can we be in as many as many homes or as many people's visual range as possible, sort of thing. And that's why WWE moved to Netflix, because it was like, we need to get, like right out in there and try to get, right to the people and get to them where they're going to watch us. What's one of the biggest streaming networks in the world? Netflix. Like, and it's so easy to get Netflix and to get WWE. So, and just, that package deal. Like, even if you're not somebody that's going to watch wrestling, it's there and it exists and you can watch it. So it's one of those things that will be, hey, well, maybe I'll watch it, whatever it is. So, but either way, like, I feel like these are the people, and it's almost all knockouts or people that would be in the knockouts division. And we have talked for a while saying that, like the men's roster is kind of thin, but the knockouts roster is really thin, especially since they lost Jordan Grace, and some of the other people that they've kind of had injuries and whatnot happen and whatnot and all of this sort of stuff. So like it does demand like more people, and like I don't know, out of these people, like who you could form into tag teams. Like Gigi has been like in a tag team, and Jakara has been in a tag team. You could tag team them together. You could actually, I would really like to see Jakara and Tasha Steelz. Like that would be like an amazing team. I think that would be like the ultimate sass flavor team. Like I think that would be a really cool team in many ways. I think it would be very reminiscent of her team with what's her name, Kira Hogan. So that would be like a cool, kind of throwback in some ways, just like to see that in some way. But of course, like, it is one of those things that is like, well, it kind of sucks to push them to being like in that place and doing that stuff. So I would like, obviously they might not want to do that or whatever it is. They might want to stay in singles roles or whatever else it is. But again, you've got to realize that, hey, it's very cutthroat at the top in many ways, and only the very small percentage of people can be in that space, and you've just got to be a bit player most of the time to help the division carry itself and kick the can down the road to a certain extent. Out of the men, I don't, besides like Strowman, I don't really see many people that I even really recognize, like, their names or anything like that. I think Joe Hendry wrestled Joe Coffey, or Gallus as he's known now. So I don't know. Maybe you could see some potential with him. But like, yeah, it's interesting because it is like a very difficult situation for TNA to pick up every single one of these. Like, I would think that they could pick up Gigi, Cora, and Jakara pretty easily. Those girls were, I don't want to make them sound bad, but they weren't really doing a whole lot. Cora was probably the biggest one out of these people doing stuff, but and that sort of thing. So it's interesting to kind of see like the potential of like these other girls in the sort of mid card, sort of brewing away, and then hopefully breaking through, or in that upper mid card or whatever else it is, to sort of finally break through at some point. But again, you would think like Dakota is a much higher brand of wrestlers. I think she's won like the title a couple of times, hasn't she? Or whatever. She had a big fan base in Damage Control, blah blah blah. She was a 2-time women's tag team champion and 2-time NXT women's tag team champion. Okay, so I thought she'd won like a big singles title at some point. Yeah, that's strange, but whatever. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. It's interesting. But those are the names overall, and those are the people that I would consider like being potential. I would say Dakota is like the least percentage out of any one of those. Like, they could pick up a whole bunch of these random people that WWE discarded, but I wouldn't say let's pick up a whole bunch of random people. Let's pick up a couple of people that we really, really want, or try to hunt down the 2 or 3 that we really, really want, and that's it. Like, don't try to, like, if AEW is really interested in, I don't know who they'd be interested in. Probably Dakota, probably maybe Braun, I don't know. But Braun, I feel like, isn't really in their wheelhouse, though I suppose they've had Wardlow and Big Bill there. Though Big Bill's been like relegated to like a mid-card tag team role, which is really weird. But still, like, he was known for being in a tag team, I guess, or whatever. So, sure. But still, like, those would be the people that I would consider, if I had the book, and I had the say of saying, okay, let's figure out, do we have the budget to bring in some of these people? Obviously the creative is, you know, like gonna be tough. Maybe for Gigi, it's somewhat tough because she was already in sort of a tag team role, kind of. So it's like, well, what are you gonna, you're not gonna just put her into another tag team sort of role. Cora, she was already like in a singles kind of role, so it's like, well, yeah, same thing. You don't want to backtrack her too much. You want to make them feel like, no, these are like, at least for a few months or whatever else it is or whatnot. These are girls that, like, we've got to be paying attention to, and they've got a big future ahead of them, and all this kind of stuff, like, not like just they're here and then they're going to be in the mid card and then we're going to forget about them, because that's kind of where they were in, like, some of them were in WWE. They were kind of like, yeah, you're here and whatever else, but whatever. Although it's funny, like, if Gigi does come over to TNA, her and Wes can wrestle together, like, which is kind of funny in some ways, but whatever. We'll wait and see to hear about that. And obviously, again, like, the problem has been, like, like Anthem, and I was saying this to somebody else about them, like, buying production crew and whatnot and that sort of thing. It's like, but they've been firing people. So it's like, you can't be firing people when you need to be really hiring people and, building up your crew, so to speak, unless you're just going to be like, okay, let's hire a random crew from the local area every single time that you go somewhere and say, okay, now we've got to tell them, everything to do if they don't already know, like, or, and we've got to train them and all these headaches, like, like, unless they know, like. And then it's like, yeah, you might have worked for WWE, or you might have worked for AEW, or you might have worked for just the local indie. I don't know. But again, like, we're TNA. We're different. We want it this way. We want that way, like. So, I don't know. Like, we also have to consider some of the other wrestlers that have been released in the last year or so that are still, like, waiting for their number of days to elapse, and like Indy, like, her contract just elapsed recently, I think. That's why she was able to finally turn up and sign with TNA. I think they were brokering that deal for quite a while, or at least discussing it for quite a while, and saying, hey, come on in, come on down, like. And obviously there are men on that list as well. I think we went through that before. I'm sure it's changed a bit by now, but again, like, I don't feel like, honestly, there's that many or too many people that I would, like, strongly consider, like, honestly, to bring in and say, okay, let's find something to do. And does Braun Strowman, like, maybe for like a one-off big time thing, that might scream, yes, this works in TNA, but for like a long-term thing, I don't know whether it does. Honestly, like, what role? I know Big Bill, or whatever, W. Morrissey, or whatever you want to call him, many people probably wouldn't have thought that he would have worked in TNA, but he worked way better in TNA than he's worked in AEW, like. And that's because they said, hey, we need main eventers. Like, we're hungry for main eventers. And even if we're, not going to pull the trigger on you, like, just because, of something else, it's like, well, we need to build up our other guys. And, like, building you up at the same time, will help us all in the long run. So, that's fair enough, or whatever it is. But again, they could do that with almost anyone. I think there are some people that are obviously like, they're sort of make it, but they sort of don't make it, if you know what I mean. They're kind of like really good and have some memorable things and whatnot, have memorable moments and feuds and matches and things like that at times. But again, they just never seem to kind of climb the mountain or achieve anything particularly, really, like anything tangible. Like Cody Deaner, we kind of were talking about that before, and it's like he's been there and he's done some cool things, especially in his latest sort of runs in the last whatever 5 or 6 years, whatever it's been. And he's had some amazing moments and matches and things happen, but he's never really won a title or like had a really significantly featured singles like match that much. Like really, like I don't know. So where'd you go from here with some of that? And it's like same with Hammerstone. They brought him in and it was like, I don't know whether you knew what you guys were doing with this guy. Like, and it's like, like just fucking push him into the upper main event. Like, it's that easy. Like, he doesn't have to win all the time, but make him a monster for 6 months, Make him a monster for 6 months. Let him destroy people here and there and that sort of thing. And then, give him a big time match. Even if he's going to lose, then put him in, like, showcase him as being one of the next guys that could be, next breakout star or something or whatever. So again, like, and not to say that they haven't hit, they've hit with a lot of things as well. We've talked about this before, but again, kind of the more balls you have to juggle, the more error or rate of error you can have. And that's where AEW and WWE are right now. They've got like hundreds of talent. And I kind of talked about this before as well, where I said, hey, reconsider going to a bloated roster, because it is like, well, there's so many people here and it's like no one can use all of these people. And how am I going to stand out among all of these people and get used when like all of these people who are great and, deserve a chance aren't getting used, And it is the same thing in TNA. And it is like, well, I understand if you're going, well, what we want to do is build them up in the fans' minds as characters and things like that. Or as, getting to the fans, getting to know them and getting to a feel for them or whatever else it is and that sort of thing. So it's like, yes, that is cool if you give them a good year or so or whatever of showcasing them and developing them and, wins and losses and stories and feuds and fights and things like that and whatever else along the way. But again, like, my thought of featuring somebody in a good way isn't just giving them tag team titles just to be like, okay, we're going to do something with you. It is nice that they're doing something with them, but it is like, well, this is a token gesture type thing, It's really like, well, we don't know what else to kind of do with you, and this division isn't really working, and it hasn't really worked, so, I don't know. I would just give up on it, honestly. But again, that is me, and I've said that a million times. I have to say it a million more times. But still, I wouldn't invest more time with like a lot of these girls if you're going to bring them into that division, especially at first. Like, again, like, give some of these girls like a good couple of months, not just, oh, well, they're going to challenge whoever is the champion out of the blue because they're here now or whatever else it is. Like, they challenge, like, some of these people, like Paxley challenged Jordan, or somebody else, what was their name from Fatal Influence there, challenged Marsha. Like, those were like, okay, whatever, this person isn't winning type things. And like, don't do that. Don't bring in Gigi or whoever else and be like, okay, they're signed here now. Oh, and they're going to have a match next month or whatever it is against the champion, and then they lose. It's like, if you're going to bring them in and you're going to bring them in hot, just to lose, just to try to make them look good and make them feel like, oh, maybe they'll be on that level one of these days or whatever else it is, I don't know. Like if it's on TV, maybe, but pay-per-view, no. Like that's where my thing's at. Like at least like if it's on TV, then it's a bit different because it is like there's not that much build to some of those things. And if somebody showcases or has a good showcase against the champion, even in defeat, it's like, well, like that did help them, like, even though it was a loss, it's like, that did showcase them. They showed some toughness. And I can't remember her name. I'm sorry. I'm not going to remember. But that young girl, call her a young girl, she's probably, like mid-20s or whatever it is, or maybe even older, I don't know. But she had a really good showing against Marsha, same with like Paxley had a few months ago, or what, it was even more than a few months ago now, but whatever, with Jordan. So I think that she got in a lot of offense in that match, like, and looked really good, looked really threatening, and she has a really good look, and she has a really good, I think she has her character pretty well down. And I think Fatal Influence as a trios, as a team, as a faction, is a pretty good faction. I think that what faction was Gigi and Pax in? They were with somebody else, I can't remember. But yeah, I can't remember what, Chemical X, was it? Something, I don't know, I don't remember. Like I said, I don't pay much attention to all these other things sometimes. I only pay attention to things that are in TNA mostly. I don't pay attention to WWE or whatever. But, or NXT or anything like that. So, but yeah. It did make, some of these other people look a lot better, even though, they're not sticking around. They got to have a big pay-per-view moment against somebody, in the company that could not drag, but could drag out a good match of somebody, and, I think that put them on the map, in many ways. Same with Cora. Like, she has unfinished business in TNA, so, like, there's a natural story there, like, in some ways. Maybe Gigi doesn't have that much of a natural story, though, again, you could put her in with the Rascals, kind of. I don't know. Could do something there, I don't know. It's up to you and up to them or whatever, and still, like, even if not, you could still do other things with her and, give her something to work with. Like, obviously you could, and you could do that with anyone, but again, and it's not just to say, let's bring in ex-WWE talent, no, let's bring in good talent, because WWE had obviously an eye for some of these talent, and obviously these talent are, potentially worth investing some time and energy in, and they've already invested some time and energy in some of these people, especially Cora in the past. So it's like, well, why not do it again? Why can't we, pull that back, or why can't we, find that again, or why can't we try again, or do something more with them again? So, but yeah, that's where I'm at with that, guys. Obviously, as I say, it's, sad to see, like, these people lose their jobs. Don't ask for anyone to lose their jobs. It's not great, but again, hey, there are other opportunities out there, and I say, like, some of these people, they might go to AEW, some of them might get picked up by New Japan, some of them might get on the indies. I think most of them will end up, like, especially the lower guys will end up on the indies very easily. Some of the upper guys might even end up on the indies for a while, but after that, they will probably find their way somewhere, at least the upper guys or girls. But, TNA is one of those options, and, like, again, like, saying, well, yeah, I could go to AEW, but, like, well, I could also stab myself in the face, like, not to be mean or anything, but it is like, well, that's a really stacked roster right now, and it's like, where would I fit in? Like, it is still a kind of stacked roster on TNA in some ways, but it is kind of thin in many ways as well. So you could find yourself a new niche, kind of, or they could make a new niche, kind of. So just doing that and saying, okay, let's give this a whirl, or let's see where this, where this goes and whatever else, because at least in TNA I'll probably get used, like every week, or maybe not every week, but every few weeks I'll probably get used and featured and something, and, then I will, have the potential to go back to WWE, So that's always something that you probably want to keep in your back pocket to say, hey, WWE, you thought you could get rid of me, but hey, here I am working with TNA, and, you might have to rehire me in a few months or whatever it is. So, and that's the thing, like, that's why you should go to a more major place, is because it's like, well, they can showcase me, If I go to PWG or whatever, it exists, and, like, there are scouts and whatnot, but PWG, for, like, 90% of people, or even 99% of wrestling fans, does not register. Like, even TNA, which is one of the major, like, couple of companies, barely registers to, like, even 99% of people. Like, only WWE, and even some of the stuff that WWE doesn't register, to, like, 90% or something like that worth of the fans. Like, even NXT doesn't register to, like, most of the fans. So, like, everything else is a real blip on the radar, and you gotta be a major, like, contributor to kind of get a whole lot of, like, whoa, kind of moments or whatever. So start thinking about saying, let's take, take that and friggin', finally, get out there and go on the big shows like in TNA or in AEW or whatever, instead of just being, like, somewhere on some indie where, like, 2 people and a dog see you. Like, fair enough for the first few months or whatever else it is, if you really want work or really need work or whatever else it is, and that sort of thing, or if you want to work 300 indies at once like Matt Cardona's doing or whatever, it's like, oh yeah, sure, if you want to do that, that's fine. But again, if you don't want to do that and you say to yourself, yeah, well, this isn't really where I want to be, I'm just kind of here because I kind of need the work, or kind of want the exposure, or want to reinvent myself a bit, or whatnot. Okay, that's what I'm going to do for a few months or whatever it is until I write out my contract, and then I'm going to go either here, there, or somewhere else, and then, I'm going to try to make a big splash there, and then, hopefully, go back to WWE if they want me. Or if not, then I'll just say, well, I'll just continue making myself a big deal outside of WWE and have a successful career there, like, instead. Like, don't friggin' sit there and go, oh, I've got to get back to WWE. Like, if you can't get back to WWE, like, accept it and say, okay, well, I'm going to be good no matter what. I'm going to love this thing of professional wrestling that I love, and I'm going to do it to the best of my abilities, and I'm going to showcase myself and, help build this brand, and, help make those moments that I do want to make here, instead of, like, pining for going back to WWE. Like, if WWE comes knocking and they give you a good enough offer or whatever, absolutely take it. But if they come along and say, hey, we're going to pay you 1/4 of what we were paying you before, it's like, brah, come on, brah. After, especially if you've done a whole lot and you remade yourself and, like, you're a hot deal, it's like, come on, brah. You know how hot I am right now. Come on. you're lowballing me, get out of here, type thing. So that's another thing you got to know your worth. But anyway, guys, you get the point. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. And I hope you guys will join me again in another one.